Hey, my name is Lucas, and in this video, you're going to get some information about the ARC Summit Challenge. You're going to hear from Elizabeth from the town of Newmarket, and she's going to go through the challenge and give you some information as to why it is and what it is. And then I'm going to share some tips around coming up with ideas for solutions. And then finally, I'll share some instructions for you to submit your idea. So let's get started.
So my name's Elizabeth. I'm the business development specialist at the town of Newmarket. So I work in the economic development team, and our role is really to help build an environment for a healthy economy. So local jobs, local talent, helping people to kind of connect to their work, and then also promoting the community and helping entrepreneurs build businesses, all of that sort of thing. So it's pretty diverse role, but it's a lot of fun. This competition is all leading up to Newmarket's first ARC Summit. And the ARC Summit is really bringing together entrepreneurs, digital natives, technophiles, people who just love innovation and thinking of ways to do things differently in the business community to solve some issues. Hopefully they meet new people and can connect, and maybe there's something they're working on and they want to, think it out a little bit or challenge themselves. And as we were developing it, we thought, what an amazing opportunity for us to also engage with some of the students in Newmarket who, already have big ideas about where the future of technology, future of business should be going. And so we wanted to put this out as an opportunity to participate in the pitch session part of this conference. So at the end of everything, we will have kind of 5 students pitching at the conference in front of 150 or so folks, and we just really want to kind of give the opportunity for students to meet and mingle with some of the business and entrepreneurs and things like that. But also, I think those folks in the audience will really benefit from the ideas that come out of the pitch competition and hearing what you guys put forward. If there's something that the students really passionate about, maybe it's climate change, maybe it's, things that are going on in their school, single-use plastics, anything like that, I think that's great. If you're struggling, or if someone's struggling to find the right topic, one of the things that we were thinking about is the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and looking at what are those goals? So, for example, one of them is to end poverty in all of its forms everywhere. And, so maybe there's a solution that you're passionate about, or you've been thinking about around food bank use. For example, I saw an article the other day that food bank use in 2021 increased by 47%. And so we have the Newmarket Food Pantry, and there's also manifestations of that in homelessness, for example, and in from the cold and some of those things. So that's one example of what it could be. But really what I'm looking for, or what I'm hoping for, is that thing that you're really passionate about, that thing that you think we should be solving, and bringing forward a solution that you think would help make a big difference. I think it can be anything. We're looking for something that is, implementable or feasible. But it could be an app, it could be, a web-based service, it could be a physical, like in-person service or product. Really, the sky's the limit. We just want to see kind of the creativity and how will that play out. In terms of key dates, we're going to do some office hour drop-in sessions on the 3rd and the 15th of November. So if there's questions, or you're working on an idea and you just want to chat it out a little bit, those 2 sessions will be available. And then we're looking for submissions by November 17th, at midnight, to have those submissions come in so we can review them. And then by 5 o'clock on the 21st of November, we'll let the students know who are advancing. And then we're going to invite you to come to the ARC Summit on November 29th and pitch your idea. And then at that session, we'll choose a few students who actually will get some seed funding to be able to make their idea happen in Newmarket. We don't want this to just be an idea. We want to see, like, if this is something you're passionate about pursuing, is there a way we can help you to get there and try it out? The ARC Summit is going to be an exciting day, and the panel that we've put together, who's going to do the judging and that sort of thing, are really excited to support students. As I said, there's some seed funding on the line to actually make this happen if you're successful. But there's also, we're bringing together entrepreneurs and folks in technology and that sort of thing. And so one of the things that I think is really cool about this is you're going to be pitching in front of all of these folks who are really passionate about making things happen and innovating. And so maybe you make your pitch and there's still a few things you're trying to work out, and you meet someone in the audience, or someone comes up afterwards and says, like, oh, I'd love to help you, or have you thought about this? And so I think it's a great opportunity to make connections in the community about around making some of those changes and implementing problems. And I think it's just it's a really great opportunity, not just for the students, but also for the entire community to benefit from the creativity that the students have and bring that forward. So I think, it's a benefit both ways, but we're excited to see what everyone comes up with. I really hope you bring your passion to this and your creativity, and I'm excited to see what you come up with. It doesn't have to be a perfect solution yet. We just want to see, where your brain is headed and how we can help to make it happen.
So now that you've had a chance to listen to Elizabeth talk about the challenge and the context, some of you may have some ideas already about what solutions you want to propose, and some of you may not. So this video is intended to do a couple of things. One is to suggest some steps and activities that may help you think about your idea and your solution en route to you pitching something on November 17th. Or if you already have some ideas in mind and you're happy to keep working on it, great. You will probably want to skip to the end of the video where I'll go through the instructions for submitting your project idea. And if you are in that category of people who already have some ideas and you're ready to go, just know that in the workbook, on the final couple of pages, it gives you some guidelines on the format to submit your idea, as well as instructions on how to submit your project. So in the video, what I'm going to cover are the things that you can see here. The approach, again, if it works for you, great. If it's not helpful, skip it. I'm going to go through these steps and these suggested activities. So some ideas to narrow down on a problem that you want to tackle. Second is using a persona to understand the specific unmet need that you may want to tackle in your solution. A step around researching solutions that already exist that solve that same problem, because that's going to give you the ability to see what maybe the shortcomings are of those existing solutions as it pertains to your persona, so that you can create a solution that's better. Next is some activities that may help you get started on a solution once you've identified what the key unmet need is. Next is gathering feedback from people who then can help you improve that solution. And then finally, like I said, instructions to submit your pitch and what to include. So let's get started. After this one thing about making a copy of the workbook. This workbook supports all of the activities that I'm going to be going through. If it's helpful to you, fantastic. If there are things in the workbook that are not helpful, awesome. You can skip it. It's just there in case it helps you. And like I said, the last couple of pages in the workbook contain instructions and guidelines on what you can submit and how to submit your idea for consideration by the town. So for real, let's get started. So what problem do you want to tackle? What problem do you want to solve with your solution? If you have something in mind, fantastic. If you don't, here are a few things that may help you narrow it down. So maybe you're really super passionate about something, something that you love doing. Maybe go there. Maybe there's an unmet need in that passion area that will intrigue you, interest you, that you want to tackle. Maybe on the other hand, there are things that you see in the community, in Newmarket, in your school, in wherever you spend your time, and you see things that bug you. Maybe it's waste management. When you walk down Main Street, you see litter on the ground. Maybe that bugs you. Maybe you see things in your interactions with people that bother you, bullying, people who maybe are not represented, don't have that voice in conversations. Maybe that bugs you. Maybe there's something you don't get, you don't understand. Maybe that in there could be something that you want to tackle. And in another vein, maybe you see things and you kind of go, why don't they do something about that? Well, what if you were they? Maybe that's a hint of a problem that you want to tackle. Now, maybe you want to go a different route. These don't work for you, and a framework that you could consider. And Liz mentioned this in the earlier part of the video, looking at the United Nations or UN Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. And you can look this up. There's a link in the workbook that goes to a webpage that really goes through a ton of detail of what these SDGs are. You could use that. Maybe you want to tackle one of these global issues that may have a manifestation or things that are happening in Newmarket that are related to these larger problems that you want to tackle. So this could be a framework that you want to use as inspiration for a problem that you want to tackle. So if you do that, though, one thing I will observe is that the SDGs are really broad. So I'll take an example of no poverty. Super broad. What do you do with that? The UN does help a little bit in terms of giving a breakdown of these issues. So each of these big, massive SDGs have related targets. And I'm just going to share these. These are just examples. And one thing that I'll call out is, even though they get a little more narrow rather than this massive problem of no poverty, they're still really super broad. So something that can help you is to think about even more specific context. So let me use the last target 1.5 as an example. If I look at building resilience of the poor, et cetera, that's, again, like I said, really broad. If I then look at identifying problems that fall within that, so I put some examples on the right hand side: reducing the number of people who experience homelessness in Newmarket, reducing the number of families who rely on the food pantry, or thinking about students who might be going to your school who might be returning to unsafe homes. Well, these are three very, much more specific challenges that occur in Newmarket, and that might make the problem statement more digestible as you start thinking about who's affected and what do they need. So I'm going to introduce the next activity that, again, could help you as you think about what problem you want to tackle, and that's in activity 1, which asks 4 questions. So which problem do you want to tackle in your mind? When you think of a problem, you may have somebody that you're thinking about in the context of this problem. How are they affected? And then what options are available to them today? So let me give you an example, still with no poverty, and I'm going to go to the second example challenge around food pantry. And in my mind, I'm thinking, so the problem I want to tackle is I want to reduce the number of families in Newmarket who rely on the food pantry. And in my mind, I have a mother. She's of a family of 4. She's married to her husband, and they've got 2 young kids, 6 and 8 years old. And the problem right now is that they don't have enough food for every day, so they do need to rely on the food pantry. And when they don't have enough food, the effect that she sees first on her kids is they can't concentrate in school. They're lower energy. For her, she doesn't feel great as a mom. She's also hungry. She's also, feeling, feeling that she's got less energy, and the options that are available to her. Well, she's kind of exhausted all possible options in her mind when it comes to stretching their money as far as they can go to make sure there's food on the table. A couple of options that she's explored. One is she has got a third job to try to get a little more money to buy more food for the family. She is, as a second step, trying to encourage her husband to also find a second job. He hasn't found anything yet, but that is an option. So, as you can see, I'm not solving the problem yet. I'm just beginning to understand what the problem is and the effect on somebody, how they're affected, what's available to them. I'm not solving anything yet, it's really articulating the problem statement. Now, if you want to go deeper, the next activity is using a persona to really get specific about the unmet need. And in this context, a persona is a fictitious character who embodies real needs and real expectations and faces real gaps that are caused by the problem. And that can help us be very precise in understanding what the unmet need is, rather than working with something really high level. So you can see right here, I'm going still with the theme of no poverty, and we're going from no poverty to this target 1.5 to then reducing the number of people who experience homelessness in Newmarket. But again, even that's really broad. So let me introduce you to a persona, Sam. Sam is 16. He's in grade 11. He goes to Newmarket High. And he's been living with his mom and his stepdad, but even before COVID, a few years ago, his relationship with his stepdad wasn't great, and his stepdad was already verbally abusing him. Now, a few nights ago, his stepdad really took it to the next level, crossed the line, and physically threatened Sam. And Sam, he's tired of this, he's had enough, and he's scared, and he just picked up his stuff and ran, and he left home. Since then, he's been sleeping in covered areas at the bus shelter, and he's been showering at the school. The thing is, he doesn't want anyone to know. He's feeling ashamed in addition to feeling sad and angry at the whole situation. So he hasn't told teachers, he hasn't told his friends what's going on. What does Sam need most? Now, hopefully through this example, you can see that I took something really broad, like reducing the number of people who are experiencing homelessness in Newmarket, and chiseling it down to very specific unmet needs by looking at the issue through the eyes of Sam. A different persona will highlight different challenges. So instead of Sam, let's talk about Janine. She's 37 years old. She's been staying at the inn from the cold for the last several weeks. And she started staying there after struggling with a couple of things related to mental health, financial insecurity, and on that last vein, she was on Ontario Works, but once her eligibility had expired, she had nowhere else to turn, so she went to Inn from the Cold. And over the past few weeks, things have been looking better. She's really been benefiting from this stability that she's been having. She's been getting help for her mental health, and she's been, to the point that she's been looking for a job. In general, she's feeling pretty positive, more than before. The issue is that in her interviews when she's been looking for jobs, when the hiring manager finds out that she's staying at a shelter, the interview kind of ends. So she's beginning to feel discouraged specifically about this job hunting process. And she's really feeling that while things are better, with the stability, people are not giving her a chance when it comes to finding a job. What does Janine need most? What Janine needs most is different than what Sam needs, and as a result, the solutions that we would come up with for each of them will be very different. So the persona can help you highlight very specific unmet needs. Which brings me to activity 2. Again, if it's here, I'm offering it if it's helpful to you. In activity 2, you're going to construct your own persona. So who are they? What's their age? The more specific, the better, because people of different ages will have very different needs. What's their location? If they are in Newmarket, whereabouts are they in Newmarket? Are they close to Main Street? Are they further out? Their location may influence what resources they have available to them, so that might be really important. And then if there are aspects of their identity that are relevant to the challenge that you've selected, you can include that. So, for example, somebody who's experiencing homelessness or at risk, perhaps their gender orientation is something that's created conflict at home, which is why they're thinking about leaving. Well, then that's a really important part of their identity, and you can include that. But there may be aspects of their identities that are not relevant to the challenge. Don't worry about including those. What's their daily life like? How are they affected by the challenge that you've selected? I've given you a couple of examples with Janine and Sam. What are they doing today to cope? And coping doesn't mean that they've solved the problem. Coping simply means that this is what they're doing to get through the day, so to speak. So, they're coping, but there's still something missing. There's still something that they would want, even after using these solutions that are available today. So what is missing in those solutions? And then finally, what do you think your persona needs most to either completely eliminate the challenges posed by the problem that you've selected or better cope? And activity 2 includes a template that you can use to think through this. Once you've thought about what your persona needs most, take a look at what's already out there today that's available that your persona could use. So I'll use the example of Sam again. Sam, let's say what he needs is not just food and shelter, but he also needs to talk to somebody about what's going on with him, how he's feeling. And there are 4 options that come to mind. So he could go talk to somebody at school, to somebody in guidance or a teacher. He could approach a shelter and have that security. He could talk to his mom about what's going on with him and his relationship with his stepdad. And he could go to the police because his stepdad threatened him. Now, each of these solutions, yes, it could help, but also have shortcomings. So, that don't quite do it for Sam. So, for example, talking to guidance or teacher, yes, that could help. However, Sam is afraid that there'll be a stigma that's attached to him. He could approach a shelter, but he's kind of intimidated to go up and walk up to the shelter and ask for that help. He could talk to his mom, but he's afraid that she's going to defend his stepdad, and he could approach the police, but he's afraid of what's going to happen next if he talks to them. So, yes, these are all viable solutions, but every single one of them has a shortcoming as it relates to Sam. So, the next activity that you could consider doing is looking at your persona and thinking about what options are available to them today and what are the shortcomings for each of those options as it relates, as your persona would see it. So that's activity 3. Once you've had a chance to think about what's available, research what's already available, you may want to reflect on what your persona needs most given what's already out there. So you started with thinking about what is that top gap that your persona needs as it pertains to the challenge. Then you looked at what's available, what's out there that they could use today, and you've looked at what's missing in those options. So after it's all said and done, after you look at what your persona needs, what's available to them, and what may be missing in those solutions for your persona, what does your persona still need after everything's said and done? What is that unmet need? That need that your persona has that it has no solution in the world today. Because again, this sets the stage for you solving the problem that is not yet, or solving for that need that has not been solved just yet. So you can use activity 4 to think through this. Now, once you start thinking about solutions, you may have something in mind already, which is great. But if you don't, one tactic I've seen helpful for people is to brainstorm. And when I facilitate brainstorming, what I suggest everybody does is come up with an idea, jot it down, 30 seconds, write down something you think will help your persona overcome that top unmet need that you identified, and give yourself 30 seconds, because then you don't get so caught up in one idea that you forget all possible other options. So what I'll typically do is set a timer, 30 seconds, jot down an idea, draw it, write it, whatever it is that it takes for you to just put your idea down. And then when the timer goes off at 30 seconds, put the idea aside, come up with a new one. And I typically give people 4 rounds. Some people really use up all 30 seconds in those 4 rounds, so they get 4 ideas. Others are cranking ideas even faster, so they get 7, 8, 10, 12 ideas. But it's great because now they can look at all of these ideas and go, do I combine some, or do I pick one that I really like, or what is it? But the idea of, or the approach of brainstorming allows you to get a bunch of ideas down rather than being so enamored with one and you forget other options. So that could be an approach that might help for you, or help you switch from needs to solution, is brainstorming. Now, once you get to the point of having a solution, I'm going to offer a few considerations for you to think about in order, as you go about creating, something that you want to show the town of Newmarket. So the first consideration: how well do you understand the solution? It seems really obvious, but I have worked with people who, pitch an idea that they don't fully understand, which obviously the confusion they may have, or the lack of clarity, makes itself known through when they do their pitch. So make sure you understand your solution. Secondly, as the deadline for this is November the 17th, and that's only a couple weeks away, how feasible is it for you to build a very simple prototype or model or illustration of your idea so that people who are looking at it from the town quickly understand what you have in mind, knowing that you probably have schoolwork and friends and extracurriculars and part-time job and volunteering and all of the things that are on the plates of many students in high school? How feasible is it for you to create something to share with the town by November 17th? That's something that I would think about. Thirdly, how interested are you in this solution? If you look at your solution, you're like, yeah, that's pretty cool, I really like it, awesome. Your enthusiasm will come through in your pitch. But if you look at something, you're like, meh, not interested, well, maybe go with something else, because your lack of enthusiasm will make itself known and clear in your pitch. And it's going to be really boring for you to work on. So why work on something boring? Work on something that interests you, not something that bores you. Impact. So when you think of your solution, and you think of what your persona needs, how impactful, how helpful is your solution going to be for your persona? Obviously, the more the better. And what makes you think that your solution will be beneficial to your persona? So think about that. And then finally, once you've landed on something, step back and just reflect on inclusion. Does your solution inadvertently exclude anybody? Smaller fonts, for example, if you have an idea for a website, images that for people who may need additional accessibility help, might you be inadvertently excluding someone from your solution? And then what could you do to include them? So consider these as you think about your solution. Once you've landed on something, sketch it out. If you have an idea for a service, what are the steps in the process? If you have an idea that involves a screen, so what, an app or a website, draw out what it could look like. What's on the home page? What happens if someone swipes left or taps on this or what have you? So what are the capabilities of your solution? If you have a physical product, how big is it? How small is it? How does somebody use it? Do they press a button? What does that look like? And so on. So sketch out what your idea is with the goal of helping someone quickly understand what you have in mind. And I would do that sooner than later as you come up with your solution so that you don't forget. You may want to take your idea further in terms of showing the town what your idea could look like, how it could work. And with that, you may want to do that, you may want to build something called a prototype. So a very basic model of what you have in mind. And again, think about how could you help someone best and quickly understand what your solution is. If you have an idea for an app, design an app. You could use Marvel apps or mockups. And by the way, activity 6 in the workbook, if you switch it to slideshow, you can click on the links and it'll take you to any and all of the platforms that I'm going to be describing and introducing here. By the way, if you already have something in mind that you want to use to build your prototype, go with it. This is not mandated. These are just I'm just putting these out there in case you're stuck and you don't know where to start. So if you have an idea for an app, you can design an app. It's not coded. It's just what the screens look like on Marvel app or mockups. If you have an idea for a website, build a website. Use Google Site, Weebly, Wix. These are all free platforms, and many of you probably have built a website already. Build a website so the town understands what you have in mind and they're not guessing at what you have in mind. If you have an idea for a physical object, you can 3D design it in Tinkercad. You could also go old school, look for stuff around the house and put together a model and use that to showcase what you have in mind. The image that I'm showing you here was from a group of students in Keswick. What they wanted to do was solve the problem of there being too many goby fish in Lake Simcoe that were eating up the eggs of the fish species that were native to the lake. So they went and they got an empty paint can, PVC pipe, and a water bottle. And as you can see, they created this prototype of a trap that when they put it in Lake Simcoe, they actually found it worked. They caught 5 fish. So a prototype doesn't have to be digital, it could be physical. If you have the idea for a process or a service, use Canva, Google Slides, PowerPoint, anything like that to showcase what you have in mind for steps or what things could look like. If you have an idea for an educational program, Thinkific is really interesting. It's a free platform that allows you to upload workshops and workbooks and videos and whatnot. And again, if none of these suit what you have in mind, or you have something better that better showcases your idea, go and use that. These were just things that help you get started, not at all things that you have to use. Now, once you have a prototype, what can be really helpful is gathering feedback from your persona or from people who are close to your persona, who know your persona well. And why it's helpful is that, and this on the right-hand side, getting feedback can help you confirm that you have correctly understood the gaps and the pains that are created by the problem you've selected for your persona. It can help you validate whether your solution is solving the need for your persona, and it can help you identify through the eyes of your persona what might be unnecessary or could be suboptimal. So if you make some changes, it'll work better. It'll help your persona better. They may say, oh, it's great, you have a website, that's really great, but you're making me click 5 times before I find that thing I really want. Make it available on the homepage so it's easier for me to find. Well, that's an example of how feedback can help you improve how well your solution helps your persona. When people are sharing their solutions, I find this is pretty much, this is really typical and very, very easy. So to share your prototype, if you have something digital, you could share the link to it. So if you've got a website or an app design or a 3D design, slides, etc., you can just share the URL and then someone can look at it and then give you feedback through an interview that you're doing live or through a survey. If you have a physical object, you could also record a video of yourself using it and showcasing it, and then share the link to the video that you've uploaded to YouTube or to Google. So that's typically the way that I've seen people share their feedback. In the cartoon, just to kind of touch on that for a minute, hopefully you see the humor that there are 3 dudes who've come up with a solution to a problem for teenage girls, but none of the 3 of them have had experience previously being teenage girls. So there would be benefit for them to go and talk to teenage girls to understand what the needs are rather than make a bunch of assumptions. Because in having those conversations and gathering feedback, they're more likely to understand the impact of the problem and understand and confirm that their solution does in fact address the needs that teenage girls face. So there's some tips for designing surveys and interview questions that I'm going to share with you here if that's the path that you choose. So the first, if you are asking questions that you don't know what you're going to do with the answers, maybe don't ask it. So for example, if I ask you, do you like this workshop? You say yes. Well, I don't know what to do with yes. I can't improve anymore. And if you say no, I don't know what to do with that because I don't know what part you don't like. So, make sure that when you have your questions on your survey or interview, you know what you're going to be doing with the answer to that question. And if you don't know, maybe don't ask that question or reword it in a way that gives you an answer that you can work with. If they don't, instead of, do you like my workshop? It could be, what do you not like about my workshop? Okay, well, I don't like that it's too long. Okay, great. Now I can do something with it. What do you like about my workshop? I like that it's specific. Okay, great. Now I can give more examples. I know to for future workshops, I'll continue to include specifics and examples. So, think about how you can use the answer to the questions that you're asking. Make sure that your questions are specific and clearly worded so your respondent or the people you're interviewing know what it is you're asking, and they can help you by giving you information that's useful. Use different types of questions to see a holistic view of your, what feedback you're receiving. So you could incorporate things like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well does my solution meet your needs? What would be the one thing you improve? So short text answer. You could do checklists of all these things and check off all that apply. What do you like about the solution? So using different types of questions will help create a bigger picture, a fuller picture of how well your solution is meeting your persona's unmet needs. Respect their time. So if you're asking people to fill out a survey, the shorter the time, the more likely it is that they're going to respond. If you send out a survey that takes someone 10 minutes to fill out, they're probably not going to answer it. But if you send a survey that requires 1 minute, 2 minutes, something someone can fill out while standing in line to get their bubble tea or their coffee, they're more likely to respond. So respect people's time and make the surveys take less time to fill out, and that your interviews are 10 to 15 minutes. Don't ask for an hour. This is all in order to increase your response rate. Next, communicate when you need feedback by. This is all due on November 17th, so you're going to need your feedback pretty quickly. So make sure the people you ask know that you need the feedback sooner than later, and make sure you give yourself enough time that you can incorporate their feedback into your solution. Finally, for those of you who may create Google Forms using your school account, know that some school systems, when you create a Google form, automatically require respondents to have an account using that same system. So if you're in YCDSB, then there may be a default setting that the people who respond have to sign in using their YCDSB account. Similarly for YRDSB, or if you're with a private school, same thing. So before you send out a survey, do a check. Use a browser or sign out of all of your accounts and test and see whether or not you're able to get in to respond. If somebody has to sign in with an email account or with a school account, you again are going to reduce the number of responses, and you probably don't want that. So just do a double check around permission requirements for your Google Forms if that's what you use. Once you get feedback, make sure you reflect. Really important questions are, how are my persona's top needs being met by the solution? And then what needs are not being met? That's really the top couple considerations in the feedback. I'll offer 4 questions that may help you as you look at feedback. So what positive feedback did you receive? Oftentimes we tend, we'll look at the negative and miss the positive. If your solution is doing some good stuff for your persona, great. Acknowledge that. Take that all in, because it's really good encouragement for your for your solution. Secondly, what was your solution not able to address? And that's really important. If you see a really important need from the eyes of your persona that your solution is not meeting, it's really important to know that. What could have made your solution easier to use? Again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier about suboptimal. If you see feedback that says, hey, this is really great, but if you did this, it'd be easier to find, incorporate that. Finally, were there any surprises? Oftentimes, if we get a surprise in feedback, the tendency is to say, I don't think, that doesn't make any sense, they missed the boat. Before you throw it away though, step back and ask yourself, is in that feedback, is there something there that suggests that maybe you have a blind spot, you missed something, there's an opportunity you didn't see, there's a need that you didn't quite identify, and maybe your solution by doing something with that feedback could be stronger. So don't throw it away. Take a look at surprises and just ask yourself, am I missing something? So that's why I suggest to you that you consider for the feedback. And then activity 7 gives you an opportunity to gather feedback and plan out how you're going to go about doing that. So you can think about what questions you have that you want to ask. Who is best to answer your questions? Is it your persona? Is it someone who knows them well? What's the best way for you to demonstrate your solution? Is it through a video? Is it sharing the URL to your design? So what is that? What's the best way to share it? How do you want someone to provide feedback? Do you want a survey? Do you want an interview? And if it's an interview, how do you want to go about doing that? And then finally, how can you reach them? Is it through your networks? Do you know these people? Do you know people who might know people? So your networks. And then potentially you may be able to do some searching on social media or online and find people who are active with that problem that you've selected, and maybe they can give you feedback. Really, the worst they can do is ghost you and not answer, and that's okay. So feel free to think about who you might know, or who you can research, or who the people who they might know, in order to find someone to give you some feedback. So I got a little more left. Activity 8 will tell you what to include in your submission. And so first, who are you? Introduce yourself. If you're working with other students, who are they? And if you decided on a team name, introduce that. It's totally cool to hey, by the way, our company name, our team name is X. Totally include that. Talk about the problem. Who's your persona? So, what problem are you solving? Who's affected by the problem? How are they affected by the problem? So this is, back to that problem and the persona. You can talk about that. Introduce your solution, show your prototype, show your model, and make sure you elaborate on how your solution solves the problem, meets that unmet need for your persona. Then what evidence do you have? Who did you talk to? What feedback did you incorporate? And how do you know that your solution helps your persona better than other solutions that are out there? Last question, if you were to be awarded the $1,000 by the town, what would be your next step? How would you use that $1,000 to take your solution further? And these are all included in Activity 8 in the workbook. Two more things. So first, what format are you going to use to show your solution? You could create a 2-minute video, keep it short, so 1 to 2 minutes. That could be you doing a quick Dragon's Den presentation. It could be you recording a podcast, talking about your idea and covering those points on the previous slide. And it could be you doing, showcasing, your physical object as you show people how to use it. That, maybe that's your video. You could submit a Google slide pitch deck or a PDF and say, this is what I have in mind, and just showcase the deck and the slides and capture all the information on the previous slide in your slides. And then finally, you could decide to do a 1-page summary. It could be a letter to a local leader in the Newmarket explaining your idea. It could be a proof of concept, or if if applicable, it could be your design for an experiment to show, to prove that your idea would work. The format's up to you, but make sure you cover the points that were outlined on the previous slide. And in terms of key dates, Elizabeth mentioned this, so on November 3rd and 15th, we'll be available from 4 to 5 p.m. Should you have any questions, the Zoom link is in the workbook, so you just click on that and join us. And if you don't want to join, then don't join. Not mandatory. We're just going to be there to help you if you need the help. On November 17th, 11:59, the submissions are due, and the link to submit your idea is in the workbook, so you can use that. November 21st by 5 p.m., the town will announce the 5 students who will be invited to join the ARC Summit conference on the 29th to pitch their ideas, and then the 29th is the conference. Finally, and again, I mentioned the Google form link is in the workbook. These are the things we're going to be asking for when you submit your idea. So your first and last name, what school you go to, what grade you're in, a contact email for you, and then a quick, brief 2 to 3 sentence summary of your idea. And then finally, and very importantly, the link to your idea. So make sure you include the link so the town can find it. And then, take a look, and then you'll find out by the 21st whether you've been invited to pitch on the 29th. So with that in mind, thanks for sitting through this. I know there's a lot of information. Good luck, and I'm looking forward to seeing your idea on the 17th. Take care. Bye.